Well, hey, welcome to Radical Metal,
Thank you.
Mr. Kyler. You and I have been, I think, kind of friends from afar, at least on Facebook, and with a mutual affection, I would think, for Mastodon.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I have, and we'll put them in this. We'll put them in this show, but I have two of your works of art. I'm looking at one right now.
Which
uh,
one?
well, I'm looking at the last one I bought from you is the one with the heart in the middle, and then
Oh, yes.
I think it's kind of like the devil eyeball and the blue, maybe angel eyeball.
Yeah, yeah. The rock and roll eyeballs, one devil, one angel. Yes. And the
And the
tarot card.
minstrels.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was for a Sugarland show, which is Houston. Houston. It's a suburb right outside of Houston. Year and a half ago, I guess so, when they went back on tour, started for the Hushed and Grim album.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was for that when that whole tour started.
Yeah, and I'll send you a picture too. I think I sent you one. I used to have it on this wall, and then I moved it, and it's in the center of two other Mastodon posters from a couple other artists. But then I love this one. It's upstairs. We'll also post it on here. It's a older one that of the Chief. I'm going to call him the Chief. It's a long or a tall one.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
In Arizona. I think that was Arizona. Or yeah.
It could be. I'm not sure actually.
I think it was. Yeah, Phoenix, maybe.
Actually, I just took a picture of it because I'm going to send.
Yeah, he's got the tomahawks crossed.
Yes,
it's like a red and gold. Yeah. Yeah, that one.
We love it. We love it.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask you to come on the show. Well, for a lot of reasons, really, but I'm always quite fascinated and admire people that, especially artists who are able to pave their own way and to figure it out and to do it and be successful at it, which I would say that you have been with all the different bands that you have represented through your art. I just think it's amazing. The most recent of which, and we'll post a picture too, is Pantera. I think it was the night they played with Metallica, right?
No, actually, the last one was just almost 3 weeks ago now, which was at the Woodlands, which is it's a Houston suburb. So that one was part of their headlining tour. So they've been on a headlining tour, but they keep crisscrossing and meeting up with Metallica and then opening up, and playing with, of course, Mammoth shows with Metallica. And I think that this week is the last of their headlining shows, and then they're going to finish out the year with Metallica. And then after the holiday break, they're jumping back on tour with Metallica and doing all next year with Metallica. But so the headlining ones for Pantera were the ones that I got to do two of them out of however many shows they did.
Oh, that's cool. Maybe I can get some fangirlish questions out of the way. What's it like meeting those dudes?
Everybody's just kind of like regular guys. I've known Philip and Selmo now for about 10 years. It met him through my buddy Marzi Montazeri, who's played with Philip on a few of his other bands, Superjoint Ritual and Philip and the Illegals. So Marzi was part of their first album and their first EP, and so that's exactly how I got hooked up with Philip. And he's always been great, sweet guy. And then most recently, Charlie Benante, Anthrax, another sweet guy. And the great thing about Charlie is he's an art fan because he's an artist himself. I don't know if you know that or not, but he's a pretty good, he's a pretty good illustrator and, artist himself. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the T-shirts out there that are honoring Dime. and Vinny, but like he does Simpson style drawings of like Dimebag Daryl and Vinny,
Cool.
and they've printed them up on T-shirts and everything. And that's Charlie. That's Charlie's work.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think I knew he was an artist, but I wasn't tracking
Yeah,
that.
no,
We'll
he's
post
really
that up
pretty
in here,
good.
too.
And so I got to meet him last year for the first time. So he was really cool, sweet guy. And he wanted to talk about art. Like that's what he wanted to talk about. You know, what do you use? You know, I'm like, well, I draw on a Cintiq, you know, which hooks up to my computer. So I'm like drawing right into Photoshop these days. You know, I still draw pen and paper and ink and pencil and all that, but like a lot of times I'm just drawing right into my computer on my Cintiq tablet. And he goes, "Oh, I have one of those too, but I can't take it on tour." I'm like, "Yeah, that's not big." And you're hooked up to your computer, so yeah, it's not really something you would take on tour. He goes, "So I like Sketch on my iPad and whatever Procreate, which is an app that's kind of similar to Photoshop on the iPad." But yeah, they're all cool. You know, I think it was really neat meeting Zach a few weeks ago at the Woodlands show because when I walked into the room, they were doing the whole VIP picture taking thing. I had no idea I was going to be doing that. They brought me in there to say hi to everybody. And Zach walks up to me, never met him before, but he acted like he knew me. And he sticks his hand out, shake my hand, and he gives me a big old bear hug. "What's up, brother?" I'm like, "Hey, nice to meet you, Zach." He goes, "Yeah, man, come on over here." So I don't know if they told him who I was, and hey, this is the guy that did art. But as soon as I got up there with the rest of them, Philip like motions to Rex and Zach, and he goes, "This is the guy that did the artwork for us." It was pretty funny. But yeah, they're nice guys. You know, it's just like regular dudes. At least from my interactions with them. Of course, with the Mastodon guys, I've known them for a while now, and you know, same thing. Like Bill, Braun. You know, Bill's like the big poster guy in the band. You know, he likes to collect and you know, with the rock posters and of course with the Star Wars stuff as well. But Braun is, you know, he's the same way. You know, he likes to really get into the whole art end of their stuff with their merchandise and everything else. So yeah, they're just, you know, they're regular guys and they enjoy a lot of the same stuff that we do. You know.
Yeah, I'm tracking that. You know, Braun also with his clown book. I think he did all that art as well, right?
Yeah, he did.
And I remember, you know, I don't know if it was a interview or maybe it was one of their making of videos, but Braun talking about how important the art was to coincide with the music, which is awesome. And it's so cool I've become friends. And actually, this is guy Kelvin Doran. I don't know if you are aware of his name. Yeah, he did this for us and my band, and I have one of his. I'm actually looking at another one of his up on the wall too. But it's just really cool to kind of get to know the artists behind these posters. I don't know if one has come out from Mastodon that I didn't like.
Well, they've done well over the years of like getting or you know okaying, you know, good artists like Kelvin. I know Kelvin. I don't know. I've never met Kelvin personally, but have interacted with him because he was on a couple of those tour runs we did for Mastodon. Like Lady Lazarus Fine Printing did a lot of those prints, which is a Houston-based company. Really.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Kelvin actually before Mastodon really was doing that whole tour doing posters for every single show, kind of a tour run thing that they started, I don't know, four years or so ago. They'd always had show posters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Kelvin had just gotten in touch with Bill somehow, some way, and Macedon was touring Europe, and they were touring in Ireland. And Kelvin's was one of the posters, like it was like his first Macedon poster. Like I don't know if anybody's ever seen it,
Yeah.
except it in Ireland. And I had to find some printers. Bill asked me to find some printers in Ireland, which I did. And we got 3 posters printed up, one of mine and one of Kelvin's and one of somebody else's. I don't remember. So that's how I remember first getting hooked up with Kelvin. And then he was on with several of those other poster runs. And I think even one of his designs got to be on a Mastodon t-shirt.
Huh. Oh, that's cool.
I think I want to say it was the first poster he did for the Hushed and Grimmed tour that wound up on one of Mastodon's t-shirts.
Is it the guy with? I'm looking at one now, and I know it's Hushed and Grim. Is it the guy taking the mask off his face like a horned devil figure? He's got arrows in him. I know Kelvin always likes to put arrows, but he's taking his mask off. Oh, it's Tear Drinker.
Yes, that's the one.
That's right. Yeah. I think I've seen that shirt. Now that I think about it.
Yep. I worked on all that stuff. Like not only did I design, of course, mine and illustrate mine and everything, but like a lot of those guys, I had my hands in all of their work, and like doing color separations for those guys and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
They didn't do it. So, but a lot of times we just have to clean up, because Lady Lazarus is super. They're really good, yeah. And there's no mistakes in their printing. And I had worked there for a while, but like during that whole time, I was working there. So I was in the mix of all of that,
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And that Lady Lazarus is the first time I've heard that was when they first started touring Hushed and Grim. They came through DC, and I got that poster too. It was my wife's birthday. I don't remember now who the artist is. But remember, that was the first time I remember ordering through Lady Lazarus. This is probably 2 years ago now. Maybe 2 years ago.
Oh, you bought one directly from Lady Lazarus?
Well, yeah, because this was an interesting case because they didn't make it to the show.
Okay. The one hiccup.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, so they weren't doing meet and greets. I always get the meet and greet because I just love Mastodon. I'm my number one. But they weren't doing them because it was still COVID fresh, and so they weren't messing around with that. And that's normally where we would probably get the poster. But I remember, they weren't at the show, so you had to scan a QR code or something. I can't remember, or just go online and order it.
Yep. Because that was, Ron Ransom's poster.
You know what? Let me look. It's yellow. It's the name's not on there. I might have got covered up. It's just maybe they don't do that. I don't know. It's just the penciled in number.
We were constantly racing against the clock because we would have to have those shipped to the venue, right? The day of the show. You can't show up a day before. They got to be there the day of the show.
Yeah. So
you're like, some of those shipments actually had to be like overnighted, like on a plane,
Yeah.
It was it was very stressful and tiring, because some of them were like very like one of them didn't make it. I'm surprised that one was the one, because I remember Ron's didn't make it, and I'm thinking I thought there was only 2 that didn't quite make it. So, like some of them weren't our fault. NC Winter, his poster for the San Diego show when they played where the Padres played.
Yeah.
His poster just got lost. The shipment, like at a post office station in San Diego. So it like made it to the city.
Yeah.
but never made it to the stadium that they were playing at.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, NC Winners. And it's like his was beautiful. You know, it was such a cool design, and it didn't make it to the show.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And it's just one of those things with shipping and like it's just one of the, you know, the fans don't think about that kind of stuff. And they're like, why don't we have a poster?
Yeah.
know.
Oh, everybody likes to complain.
Things happen, you know, and that's what happened with NCs. And I don't remember what happened with the one you're referring, but you know, sometimes these things happen.
Yeah, for sure. So that's interesting though. So you're kind of you're not only doing art for Mastodon and a lot of other great bands, but you're part of the logistics with Lady Lazarus. Is that and
I was.
stuff?
I
Yeah.
was. I left there about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
I'm working at another print shop now. I did work there for a couple years. But during that whole time with Mastodon, when we kind of started up that, where we were the curators.
Yeah.
Because we pitched it to the guys in Mastodon of like, look, let us curate everything. We'll get all the artists. We'll you know, put the numbers together, and we'll ask the artists if they want to be part of this tour. So you're looking at like 22 to 25 artists per leg of a tour, right?
Yeah.
And then so we handle all the printing. The artist, of course, does the art. We handle all the printing, and a lot of times we have to handle the color separations. And then we will ship to the venues. So that cuts out the band having to deal with any of that.
Yeah.
Because it's just easier. You know, if one place is doing that, and you still get this variety of having all these different artists doing posters for a tour, you know, and but you have quality control because you're doing all the printing in one shop, and there's less headache of trying to, is this place in Portland going to get our posters to the venue in time? Is this place in Texas going to, you know, there's none of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's great. And yeah, sure. And is Bill kind of the nexus point then to handle those deals? Because he kind of seems like the boss behind the business a lot of the time.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, he's like the poster guy in the band, you know. So yeah, we would, you know, run everything by him for approval. You know, how does this look? You know, well, and we would, you know, like with the artists as well, it's like, here's the list of artists. And like I said, we would curate them. And I think Bill probably, I don't even remember, honestly, if Bill would like nix anybody, you know. If we showed him somebody's work and didn't get a response, then whatever. But I think everybody we picked got used.
Yeah.
Like,
that's cool.
Yeah, everybody we reached out to, if they said yes, then they were used. They got to do a poster design, and it's still that way. Now they've pared back doing every single show poster. Now they're only doing, I think, 4 posters to each leg.
Oh yeah, huh? So like what's now the monsters? Gosh, what's it called? Well, it's just that the Gojira, the Mastodon.
That's but that's like the tour poster.
Yeah,
that's being sold at like every single show throughout this whole past year. But the posters that they're using for show posters that are screen printed, Lady Lazarus is still doing them. So they're using, like I said, 2 artists right now. It's not old 20 of us anymore. It's been Riz Cooper and Vance Kelly. Those 2 guys for the last 2 legs those two guys are the only ones that have done any of the concert posters for Mastodon in the last year. And I think after once the band started touring again, right off of Hushed and Grim, poster sales were crazy. Like every single night, posters were selling out.
Yeah.
Holiday, Christmas break rolls around, second leg of the tour, the poster sales kind of started to dip a bit. And then summer rolled around. Of course, they do all the festivals. They don't really do posters for festivals and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they go back on another headlining tour. And the nights they were never consistent. So they said, okay, let's just do this. We'll just do 4 posters, 2 artists. What they do is they'll design what's called a diptych, which is like a twin image, or it's like two pieces of art on one poster. Then they cut that in half, and it's 2 posters.
Oh, okay.
So you're using the same 8 color combinations, right? But it's 2 pieces of art, but you're printing it all at once. So that's going to save you some money on the printing end of it. The reason they're picked is because they're for sure sellers. Riss and Vance have a very Mastodon / metal look to their work.
Yeah.
So it's like a safe bet to use those 2 guys.
Gotcha.
So it's like that's who's been getting the call for those. I imagine they're going to pick back up again just because Mastodon they've done too much over the years. I think everybody just was ready to like go after like everybody started touring again after the pandemic, and everybody's all the major bands were out touring again. That like they had a lot of sales. That first Hushed and Grim, they were selling out, or just about selling out of the posters every single night, and so that was great. But then I think fans are now going to shows more and more, and it's like they have to like be more conservative with what they're spending, I guess. We'll see.
It is interesting stuff. I'm in my 20s, like many fans, I would say. You're in bands, you want to make it big and all that kind of stuff. Now I'm in my 40s, approaching the big 50 in a couple of years. The business and the touring part of it does not sound like fun to me.
A lot of work.
Yeah, it's just a lot of work.
It really is. I've seen that over the years now, of seeing like the back end of it, and like it's a lot of work. And I feel for being out there in the heat this past summer. I feel for like the crew and everybody that puts these things together, especially on the summer tours. Because you're constantly on the road, and you're up and you're putting stuff up and tearing stuff down all day long. And it's a lot of work. I got a lot of respect for those people that put on those shows.
Yeah, and just the money part of it too. Everybody thinks rock star, Grammy winners, a lot of money, and maybe it is, and I really don't have an idea, but the expenses just seem, you want to put on a good show. Mastodon definitely is up their game. I feel like every year they tour,
totally
with lasers, and now they got that monster.
The pyro now.
Yeah,
I've been going to Mastodon shows for 20 years, I think. Yeah. And this past tour with Gojira is the first time I've ever seen them use pyro. I was like, okay, now they're really stepping up their game. It's like pyro is now part of their stage show.
Yeah.
Which is great because it's fun. It's a great, visual show, aspect, and I dig it. But yeah, it's a lot of work. Same thing with that Pantera. They got crazy pyros in the Pantera tour as well.
It seems like the fraternity of artists, is kind of a tight knit group, even though you guys are, all over the world. And then you have a unique position, I think, maybe working at Lady Lazarus and maybe where you're working now, just being at that kind of connection point where you're communicating with a lot of them. And what's that like? Is it, I would think if it were me, I might feel competitive a little bit too, but I don't get that feeling from you at all. I think you guys, it sounds like trying to support each other.
Yes.
And get each other known.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Poster artists, and I said this recently, we're screen print artists. Like, it's a trade that you learn just by working in a screen printing industry, whether it be t-shirts or posters. The whole learning color separations is a trade. And so we're all kind of in that, fraternity of screen print artists. So like, we know the trade. It's not just, can this guy draw good or this girl draw good? They have to understand how to print.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. Like, and I've been in it since I was in college. That's really all I've ever done is work at print shops. I mean, I've worked at a few other places that were just design only, but like very short lived. And I even worked at a company that designed toy packages, which was cool and fun. But mainly print shops. And so you have to look at the whole end of it.
Does it start with a drawing and then you have to know how to match the colors and make the colors just right in the printing piece of it? Am I on the right track there?
Yeah. Well, when it comes to printing and doing art for printing, specifically screen printing, you really need to know how the colors are going to blend or how they're going to look once it's printed. It's always in the back of your mind when you're designing something. Like, you'll see some posters only have 2 colors, and then some have 7 colors or 10 or 12. It's not like when you're painting, you can kind of just mix colors and kind of keep mixing colors until you get something right. You kind of have to have a color palette set. Okay, I'm using these inks, and then you're designing using those inks, but you have to know how they're going to work once they're printed. And it's just experience, just from years of doing it and seeing it printed on a t-shirt or seeing it printed on a poster and knowing what's going to happen, when you're designing. So yeah, doing art for printing is different than doing art, period.
Tell me your kind of journey with it. You said you'd been doing printing since college, but before then, were you drawing? Were you painting?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been drawing since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Grew up drawing, a lot of rock and roll stuff, a lot of Kiss. When I was a kid, I just told my buddy Marcy, we did an interview a few weeks ago. I said, all the rock bands I was drawing, and comic books as well, and Bruce Lee, drawing Bruce Lee, Conan the Barbarian, the Hulk, all the comic books that I was into at the time when I was a kid. I would copy, just by looking and drawing at that stuff. And portrait art, I did some portrait art as well. Pencil, pen, and ink. I would dabble. I have some paintings and pastels that I've done, but it's been like a long time ago. I really don't even mess with that stuff anymore. But it's like illustration, kind of like Kelvin's drawing about right behind you and that kind of stuff. I do a lot of that kind of stuff. So that whole illustrative style of like comic book style works really well for what I do for screen printing. I love all kind of art, but that's what I drew growing up that I remember was like, you know, a lot of Kiss, a lot of comic book stuff, you know, a lot of rock band stuff, Led Zeppelin, you know, even drew a picture of, you know, like Eddie Van Halen. I have a few drawings of him and Angus Young of AC/DC and whatever. I mean, you know, sit here and rattle off a whole bunch of drawings that I remember doing when I was a kid. But I always drew when I was young, and I always had art classes in high school, and then I took graphic. It was called commercial design in college, which was art, you know, right? Because we had to do everything. Like in college, they threw every kind of medium at us, from sculpting to painting to you know, design and illustration, drawing and pen and ink and paint and what do you call it? I don't even know what you call it, where you cut paper and you're putting together, you know, like construction paper designs, and they threw it all at you in college.
Tell me this, does your natural ability for drawing, does that translate to sculpture, or is it totally different?
Totally. Yeah. So sculpture, I've never really gotten into sculpture a lot.
Yeah.
But I have done some sculpture. And yes, it totally does, because you've developed the ability to draw with shading so that you can see like 3D, right? You know, especially and that does translate when you're sculpting something. So I do have some sculpture pieces, not a lot, but I have some where I'm like, if I really wanted to pursue that, I think I could, you know, kind of go in that direction and do it, you know.
Yeah.
I've done some, like, you know, faces and sculpture and stuff, and I've always just gone back to drawing, though. That's like, you know, that's my thing.
No, that's cool. I've always been kind of curious about that.
It does translate well, though.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Totally. Yep.
You've been in the game for a long time now. Is it still passionate for you? Which I don't mean that to sound offensive, because I'm sure it is, but yeah.
Actually, probably more so now than ever. And experience and age probably has, and this just pertains to the way I feel about myself. I don't get stressed so much over a blank palette anymore, because I know if I just keep working, you have a figment of an idea of a design that you want to do. It's, you know, you just have to work at it to make it come real, you know. And from years of doing that, knowing that, you know, oh, I'm working on this design and I'm not getting it. I'm not getting what I'm seeing in my mind's eye or my idea. But as you keep working, you know, your brain is crazy about how things will just unfold if you just keep working at it, right? And if you just kind of keep playing with a design and moving stuff around and redrawing it or whatever. I mean, I started another design the other night for another poster, and I totally scrapped it. Like, because I'm like, I had another idea that was better. It was still kind of in the same vein, but it's like, nope. And so I spent hours on it the other night, and I'm just like, gonna set it aside, start over, because this idea now I have, and that wouldn't have come to me had I not been working on the one that I was doing. It's crazy how our brain works that way. But so I don't get stressed about not coming up with an idea, because I know I will.
Can I interject real quick just to say, and I just want to interrupt because one of the major tenets of this show is my favorite quote from Alan Watts of all time. It's clarity comes through engagement. Like, that's what I'm doing right now, talking to you with this show. I'm like, hey, I just got to do it. And then, you know, we'll figure it out as we go. It's just got to keep doing it.
You just got to keep doing it. Got to keep doing it. So over the years, I've learned that. So I don't stress over like the creative end of, you know, because we're all we all have the ability to do art and do these creative things. You just have to work at it. So I don't stress over that. Now, I may lose sleep because I'm working so long and working against deadlines, because that's kind of the nature of the business. But that's because I don't want to not get something done, you know. A lot of times you'll do a design, you'll think it's done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, you walk away from it. Okay, I'm calling this one done. Come back a day later and look at it. You're like, I need to spend another couple hours on it.
Yeah.
Because now you see something, and I don't know. I didn't make this saying up. I don't know where I heard it, but you see it with fresh eyes, right? That's kind of like when I'm working on something and somebody else sees what I'm working on, and they have an idea, and they're, oh, that looks cool. But you know what would look cooler is if you move this over here. And you're like, you might be right. They got fresh eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you as the artist can have fresh eyes as well. That happens to me all the time. So I'll put a design away, think I'm done with it, be happy with it, come back the next day and go, nope, I got to spend another couple hours on it, because now I see how it will look better, because you're looking at it with fresh eyes, and it always is better when you come at and see it, and you're seeing it like you're seeing it from somebody else's eyes. You're just seeing it like you've cleared your mind out, because a lot of times you're just focusing in on small details when you're working on a design instead of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right. And it might be something where you just need to move something. Like, hey, the design feels like it's falling this way. I need to move this piece over here, and now it's balanced, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So I don't stress over the creative end of it too much, really.
That's cool. Then that comes with experience, I'm sure.
The experience.
For all the artists out there that may be getting started, I have a specific question about that. Like, I'm making an assumption that you followed your passion. You're passionate about this. And I'm sure you came through adversity and maybe things that try to inhibit you from going to where you are today. Maybe you can give an example or share some of that, but how you overcame it and were able to press on to keep doing it.
Well, okay. There's always adversity.
Yeah.
Always. But yeah, you just have to keep pressing on. And I'll say, working at print shops, this is just my opinion, but it's also from observing other people that do this, is like, it's been super beneficial. Because you're not on a day-to-day basis working at a print shop, you don't always get to do cool stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're doing stuff for, little league baseball teams and church retreats and, corporate functions. And so a lot of the times you're not even designing the work, but you're having to make somebody else's work to print. You gotta make it, work to print. It's got to print, and they're sending you a file that is not print ready. But so you have to learn all that. And it's been super beneficial for me, and I'm sure everybody else that's ever worked in print shops. It's been super beneficial because you learn the back end of having to do that stuff, because that's a step to get you in a position to be able to create your art and make it look good on print, which is what people buy. They're going to buy t-shirts. They're going to buy posters. They're going to buy the banners, right? So you have to know how to make it look good when you're designing it for the print. You can take a painting and it looks beautiful, but it's like, how are we going to make this thing print? You got to learn the color separation end of it.
And it's much harder to sell a painting, right? You have to, it seems like you have to be in some pretty exclusive circles to sell no kidding paintings.
Yeah. Painting, doing like the fine art world, you really have to crank out a lot of paintings every day, That's not a world I'm really familiar with. But
Mm-hmm.
I follow plenty of those people on Instagram and
Mm-hmm.
look at like, wow, these people are painting all day long. You know what I mean? I'm working at a print shop, and all the rock and roll stuff is my freelance. But I work more, like hours wise. I put in more time on my freelance work than I do at my regular 40-hour week job at the print shop.
Yeah.
You know, um, that's what it takes. So you're asking, it's like young people coming up. My youngest son is an artist. He's great, you know, and he's in college right now, taking art, you know. But like it's a grind.
Yeah.
It really is to get traction and get noticed. Um, the digital end of it, like doing web design and stuff, that's like I have no advice for anyone, because to me, it's not my, I've worked at a shop. Actually, I worked at a design firm that I did design web pages, but I didn't do the back end coding stuff. I knew enough. I learned enough to make myself dangerous. You know what I mean? It wasn't my thing. And it's still design. I was still designing web page layouts, but then I would hand it over to the person that would chop it up and make it work on the websites.
Yeah.
I don't have any real advice, because it's like now everybody does their own thing, right? With Wix and WordPress and whatever. But your point about print versus painting and stuff, especially with like the posters and stuff. It's a good way that people can own a piece of art without having to spend, thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah.
And it's really like the poster world. It's been amazing to watch it grow, and thanks to guys like Frank Kozik, rest in peace, him being there at the right time when the alternative rock kind of started bubbling up in the late 80s. And he became a guy that was a go-to artist for posters. His rock posters were dead all through the 70s and 80s. It was they happened in the 60s, and it's like the 70s rolled around, it's just like they died. Frank came around and he was hanging out with Butthole Surfers. There's video of him online talking about it. But he was out. He had been based in Austin when he got out of the service, and he just followed those guys around and was doing their show posters and became noticed for that. And then when alternative rock started really blowing up in the late 80s and early 90s, all these cool bands wanted guys like Frank to do their art, because he just did whatever. Yeah. And it was a very rock and roll aesthetic to his stuff, because, there was no rules with what he was designing. And he had guys like Christopher Cooper and Derek Hess and all them. They were there right at the same time. So he had all these guys coming together, and it turned into a thing that really for the last 30 some odd years now has gone from rock and roll into movie poster collecting. Where you have all these alternative movie posters that are screen prints. So it's like this whole industry has been built up just from that, 30 years ago.
Well, that's a great history lesson too. Let me ask you, this is kind of a cliche question these days, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What is the threat, if it is a threat, of artificial intelligence, the AI art you're seeing, the web journey?
I mean, it's so new. I don't, a lot of artists I saw kind of recoil when they saw it and think, oh no, I didn't have that kind of reaction, because to me, I looked at it, I'm like, your mind knows that that's not real. When you see it, now, is it going to get to a point where it can fool us? Yeah, it probably will, and it probably is right around the corner. But I'm not. I don't know. It's just not in me. I'm not that worried about it, honestly, because you can sit there and add some prompts into whatever Midjourney or whatever it is, and it's going to pull you right. It's going to pull from information all over the web that's out there, and then create what it thinks you're trying to tell it to create. But it's never going to be what you're thinking about. And to me, it's just like, whatever. It's just it's here. We're going to have to deal with it. I don't sweat it too much. I do see other people sweating it. I mean, I'm not going to call this band now. There is another band out there. It's a big band. Their entire, and they went with doing a whole tour series of posters, and every single poster was an AI creation. Big band. And they got a lot of flack online when they did it, because immediately you could tell it was AI, right? But here's the thing. It was really pretty good. And as an artist, I knew that whoever did it, it was more than just them telling it prompts. They had to tell it prompts, and they probably had to do a lot of work after they got the imagery back, adding logos and stuff like that, and cleaning stuff up in Photoshop and whatever. So I'm sure there was a lot of work in every single design, but it was all, every single poster was an AI creation. Well, it's here, and this person that did it, they had a pretty good defense of themselves for doing it. They were, and this is actually, I'm not telling anything, out of hand here. This is, they actually defended themselves on the band page, and it was a band member that did the art.
Can you say who it is or no?
Mr. Bungle. It's already out.
Okay.
I mean, it's already out there. It's on Mr. Bungle's page, but they started getting a lot of flack, and so the person that did the art was like, "Look, this wasn't easy. I had to put a lot of work into this, just like I have to learn how to play certain things on my guitar that aren't supposed to be, played. I have to force what's in my head out through my instrument. I had to force what was in my head through the computer and make it work. And I had to do a lot of work to get these images where I wanted them."
Yeah.
And so he made a good defense of himself using AI, but I still see a lot of artists going, you're cheating. You're cheating. But at the same time, like, I bypass my light table to draw directly into Photoshop nowadays. Am I cheating? Sure. I mean, from what I used to do on my light table and drawing and redrawing and tracing what I've drawn, I'm now doing it right into my computer with my Cintiq tablet, and I'm drawing right into Photoshop. Am I cheating?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess. I don't know. I'm still putting in the work,
Yeah, this band, it's been like 2 years. We're still trying to put this album together. But some of the songs have digital drums on it, and they just sound really good to me. I think they just sound great. And so, I'm singing. I'm not doing anything to my voice. I'm playing guitar. So, and all the other guys are playing bass and guitar, and we do have live drums on most of the stuff, but we do touch it up a little bit with the digital, and it takes a lot of work.
It does take a lot of work, and it sounds great. I mean, look at like Ministry. I mean,
yeah.
I've seen interviews where Al Jorgensen would say, "Yeah, my drummers hate me anytime I create new music, programming all of those drums, and they got to learn how to play them live."
Yeah.
So all those industrial bands, Nine Inch Nails, Ministry, Front 242, whoever, they've been doing it for years. You know,
Yeah.
all the synth bands in the 80s, you know, all those drums were programmed. You know, did
Mhm.
fans care? No.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder if there's a little more grace given to the audio artist, the musician, than maybe like what you're saying, Mr. Bungle guy getting a hard time for his art. But I could, I was also gonna say I don't see a band like Mastodon going that way just because they revere art so much. And again, not to your point, not to say that it's bad what they did, but I just feel like there's a lot of big bands that revere art enough. They want the human touch to it. And another thing came up in another show, and now I can't remember who I was talking to, but the when we talk about AI music, because that's coming out too, like all AI music.
Yeah.
That someone said nothing will. Oh, I know what it was. Sid Howell. I'm going to post one of him. He's a promoter down in Atlanta. He knows Mastodon. I don't know if you've heard that name before, but he was Legion X. I don't know if you remember that band, but
The name is familiar.
anyway, all to say, he was doing a show. It wasn't even this show. And the guy said that nothing can replace playing live a human to a human audience,
Totally.
which sounds a little romantic, but it's true. Like it's just I don't think you can replace that.
No, you can't. You can't. You can't. With
Yeah.
the whole visual art end of AI versus the audio creations that we've all heard now. We get of course it's very early on, and to my ear, it just doesn't sound good, right?
Mhm.
Now, the visual stuff I think is going to get to a point. Like I said, really doesn't bother me that much. The visual stuff, like seeing AI created stuff, I didn't have that same kind of like gut reaction like saw a lot of other artists having. But the audio stuff, that's kind of a different thing, because it's creating Kurt Cobain singing a song he never was a part of,
Yeah.
you know. But when you hear it, you're like, yeah, that sounds like Kurt, but it doesn't sound like Kurt because there's no real human emoting with when a computer's trying to do it. Now, will it ever get there? Who knows? Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be the big boom for the music industry that the music industry thinks it's going to be.
Yeah.
Still want to go see live music, and you just can't touch that. The experience of being there, seeing people play live and performing, and that human experience is always going to be better, and it's always going to be what people want.
Actually, there was something that I meant to ask again. This is more of the fan in me wanting to know any cool stories from any big artists that you've met along the way through your longevity here in the poster business.
So the last 10 years, I mean, everybody I've met, it's been kind of like there's not any kind of wild, crazy stories, honestly.
Yeah.
There's cool stories about how you meet somebody, I guess, like with the Mastodon guys, for example, since we're talking about those guys. Bill being the poster guy, I contacted him originally through an email he put out, right? So people could contact him for guitar lessons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I got one for you after you this one. Okay, go ahead.
That's how I originally started doing work for those guys. As I had done, I'm like, maybe 8 years ago, I did a poster that I was going to gang up with another poster that I was doing for Chris Cornell
Mm-hmm.
when he was doing a solo tour and he was playing Houston. And it coincided with Mastodon coming through town. And so I'm like, I'm just going to do a poster that I'm going to print with Chris's. I'm going to use all the same ink colors, and we'll cut it right down the middle. So I did this design, sent it to Bill, and that's how I got his attention.
Yeah.
He had actually seen a design I did for Mastodon a few years before that. And I know that he knows what it is because Braun knew what the design was as well. And it was for a contest. Like I did, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years ago. Whenever the Hunter album came out, I think it was. But that's how I got in contact with those guys. Other than that, there's no crazy stories or anything, you know, because everybody's real business-like, you know. It's more like hanging out, you know. It's the backstage stuff. I've been backstage plenty of times with a lot of bands. Those guys, Corrosion Conformity, everybody. It's just kind of chill.
Yeah.
There's more crazy stuff that I can talk about in the 90s when I was first starting out in Houston at print shops, but I would also work as a security for shows. My brother was going to University of Houston, and he was in the dorm room with one of the people that worked at one of the concert promoters in town called Pace Concerts. And anytime there's a big show in town, I always work security. So I told my brother, I'm like, whatever band comes to town, I would say, hey, I want to be working on that show. And so I would get that gig, you know?
Yeah.
So like after work, I would go to wherever the venue was, get my staff t-shirt, get my instructions for the night, and work those shows. And the coolest and craziest one, I've told this story a million times, was a Soundgarden show where they played a place called the Unicorn. And the Unicorn was a cleared out grocery store. Had several shows in the 90s. Tool, Primus, Public Enemy. I mean, I worked all those shows. Smashing Pumpkins, Pearl Jam, Red Hot Chili Peppers. All those shows, all those bands were exploding at the time. And I worked every single one of them. But the Soundgarden Pearl Jam show, Soundgarden headlined. I got to meet all the guys after the show. It was super cool. MTV was there doing the Weekend Rock thing that they used to do every week. It was like a wrap up of like a 10-minute thing they would do every hour on MTV. Whatever. So the MTV crew was there. I worked the pit, you know, where they keep the kids from busting their heads if they fall over the barricade or getting on stage or whatever, you know, throwing the kids back out into the crowd, everybody's body surfing and everything. So I worked the pit. I wanted to work the pit. I wanted to be right in front of the band. Yeah. Working the pit for that show. And that was a crazy show because those bands were popping at that time. You had Swerve Driver, Monster Magnet, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden. That was the lineup. Frank Kozik did the poster for that show. That poster became the most popular Frank Kozik poster ever. They were on MTV. It was just nuts. And Eddie Vedder climbing the rafters and dropping into the crowd. He did that whole thing. Not to be outdone, as soon as Soundgarden took the stage, first song, Chris throws down his guitar, jumps out into the crowd, body surfs all the way back to the venue, comes back up. Me and my buddy pull him back up out of the crowd, and I hoist him back up on stage by his ass. It was nuts. It was nuts. I mean, it's like we looked at each other, we're like, what is going on? This is crazy. And then we got to go backstage afterwards and meet them, and they were super cool and nice and everything. And that's probably the best story I got. I mean, I could keep going on and on and on. But
yeah, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate you hanging out with me for a little bit. Tyler, I love your work, man.
Thank you.
Friggin' doing what you're doing. I bet a lot of guys in the Mastodon Mayhem too will get a lot of encouragement and inspiration from your our talk today too.
I hope so. Yeah. Good luck with this. What do you call this, a podcast now? I don't know.
You know, we've been calling it a podcast. I don't know if I like that. I kind of want to just call it a show because
call it a show.
it's
absolutely.
goes through production, and there's a producer, and there's a, well, he does all the editing. Cy Hope, he's also in Mastodon Mayhem, connected to me through Amanda Blackman, the Mastodon mom, who's also been on this show.
Oh, Amanda's on the show?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So recently it's a lot of people you probably know, or at least have heard of. Amanda Blackman. We had Tom Cheshire, who plays with Brent and West End Motel. He's become a real dear friend and an inspiration. And then Kelly Hester, Death Pickles.
Oh, yeah.
And then some guys coming up. Sid Howell is a friend of the band. Has Brent on a number of times on his show. But it's been so much fun. It's just been fun. So I'm just kind of following my bliss here and trying to make it happen and getting that clarity through the engagement.
Absolutely. Yeah. Keep doing it. It's fun to kind of pick apart people's inspirations and whatnot and hear backstories.
Yeah.
Best of luck, man. It's like, it's a cool thing. I dig it.
Thanks, man. Well, we'll see what happens. I think we're blessed with not having any expectations. We're just keep on moving,
That's one way to look at it. Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, hey, thanks for your time. I don't want to keep you any longer. I really appreciate you meeting with me today. I really got a lot of value from your stories and in your journey, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. I appreciate it, man.